Hey guys, Frosted Knives here, and today we're going to be reviewing by Stephen King and Peter Straub, the 1984 classic, The Talisman. This was a collaboration written in the early 80s by two of the premier horror writers of the time, Stephen King and his UK compatriot, Peter Straub. In this book, while still sticking to the horror genre, is mostly a fantasy book. And the book follows 12-year-old boy Jack Sawyer, whose mother, Lily Sawyer, is an actress in many B movies. And they have recently moved to a hotel in New Hampshire because Jack's mother is dying of cancer. And this is about Jack's journey across the country to find a cure, for his mother's cancer. So it's another coming-of-age story, another story about children growing up too fast and having to deal with more adult issues. It's Jack's father and Jack's father's best friend have discovered that there is a parallel world. A world that is extremely similar to the United States, to ours, but in many ways different. It's more of an agricultural world where they use magic instead of science. A world that Jack's father calls the territories. A parallel universe where things are similar to what you see here, but different. And in this world, there is an item called that Jack calls the Talisman that holds the cure. Like there's a magical, mysterious orb that can hold the cure for his mother's condition. So he proceeds from the East Coast to the West Coast, and Jack has the ability, like his father did, and his father's uncle does, to flip from our world into the territories world. In the beginning, he needs a little help to do it, but as the book progresses, Jack can flip at will. And just like things are duplicated from their world to our world, people are also duplicated from their world to our world, and King and Straub call those people twinners. So where one person is a certain person in our world, then he has a twin in the territories. Except for Jack Sawyer, Jack is what they call single-natured. His twinner died at a very young age, but Jack survived. So Jack is single-natured, and because of that, he has the ability to make this journey from east to west and to get into the place where the talisman is being housed and retrieve it. Jack's father was a good person and was wanting to use this ability to flip for the benefit of humankind, to do good things, to visit. Jack's father's friend, Morgan Sloat, who is the main villain in the book, wants to use the power for evil purposes. Basically, he wants to take over both worlds. And he brings in guns and weapons and bombs from our world into the territories, gives them to those people who have never seen stuff like that in the bid to take over the territory. So not only, Jack is trying to find the cure, but he also needs to stop his crazy uncle, Morgan Sloat, from taking over this world and our world and everything else. It is a really good story. It is really detailed, and it follows Jack's journey. And along the way, he runs into various different people that try to help him, people that try to kill him, he makes friends along the way. He makes friends with a werewolf, because there are bands of werewolves that lives in the territories. He makes friends with a werewolf, and then about 3/4 of the way through, he recruits his best friend Richard, who is Morgan's son, and recruits him and basically gets him in on the journey as well. And so there's horror elements involved, there's fantasy elements involved. It is a journey type story where he eventually gets to where he's going, the Black Hotel that houses the Talisman. He stops Morgan, he stops him from taking things over, and then he winds up saving his mother. Incidentally, his mother's twinner is the Queen of the Territories, who is also dying in that world. So there's a lot riding on Jack's journey. He has to save his mother. That's the initial selfish reason he wants to go on the journey. He wants to save his mother. But along the way, he discovers that he is a more pivotal role in a larger universe. Not only is he going to save his mother, he's going to save this queen. He's going to save his world. He's going to save the territories. He realizes that this journey is a lot bigger than just him and his mom, a lot bigger than he thought, and that he's a lot more important than he thought. I highly recommend reading this book, even if you're not into Stephen King or Peter Straub, if you've never read either one. They do a really wonderful job of blending voices. It's really well written, really well described. The story is phenomenal. Lots of horrific elements, a lot of fantastical elements. You can really relate to Jack. And it is a coming-of-age story, a 12-year-old boy who has to deal with the death of his mother. But not only is that, he has to deal with worlds and universes, parallel dimensions, and all these things that force children to grow up faster than they should. I read this because this was probably the third time I've read it. This also has very heavy connections to the Dark Tower series, as you know, that I am writing. The parallels are quite intriguing. I used to think that Jack was flipping into Roland's world, into Midworld, but he's actually flipping into a mirror of Roland's world, or what he calls the territories, because there are many universes, many parallel worlds. So Jack's journey and Roland's journey to the tower are very similar. Both of them are going west. Both of them are looking for a mystical item in a mystical building. Both of them are drawing people and friends from other worlds into their worlds to join them. There is a fantastic part towards the end of the book where Jack has to ride through the Blasted Lands on a train, on an electric train track, which is basically a large section of the country that has been devastated by a nuclear war, which very closely mirrors Roland's journey in the Wastelands, when they have to ride through the Wastelands on Blaine the Mono. Both Roland and Jack are gunslingers. Jack, he's not a gunslinger at the beginning of the story, but definitely by the end of the story, he would be a gunslinger. And both stories focus heavily on fate and Ka and things being a wheel and fate sort of ruling your lives. And it was very interesting to see the parallels between this and the Tower after having read all of the Tower books. And I definitely recommend picking up a copy of this book. If you're into horror, if you're into fantasy, if you haven't really read King or Straub or not much into fantasy or horror, I really think you would like this story. It's pretty long. Paperback clocks in at 768 pages. But it's a good read. It doesn't drag. It doesn't bog down in areas. The dialogue is good. The descriptions are phenomenal. You really get a sense of being there, of being in both worlds, both universes. The territories in our world are fleshed out really well. There is some really horrific things that happens to this poor boy along the way. I don't want to give away too many spoilers. The end